very much be delighted if you'd introduce yourself and start talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so, hello everyone. My name is Katie Clubb. I recently joined the Forest of Dean District Council climate team in the position of Climate Change Community Programme Advisor. So I'm going to be working to bring the District Council's climate emergency commitments to life and ensuring that all of our community groups and residents benefit from the journey to a low carbon future. So I'm going to be also leading on the climate adaptation work, working with town and parish councils. So that's, I think, what brought me to have a conversation with Graham to begin with in my work with getting more involved with the town and parish councils. And so I'm going to be, hopefully helping to support some fantastic work that's already started with creating climate adaptation plans and risk summaries for some of the towns here in the Forest of Dean. Um, and a big part of my work is also around communication. So it's one of the first kind of priorities of my role. So I started in this role just 2 months ago now. And my main kind of goal is to create this overarching kind of community engagement program with lots of different projects within it, all trying to kind of move towards a just transition and bringing everyone along on that journey. Now, of course, that journey is going to be underpinned by communication, and communication is such a big part of the engagement and kind of behavioural change journey that's needed towards net zero. So that's why when Graham asked me to do one of these banter sessions about kind of things I've been learning in my new role, and what I'm up to here at the district council, I thought that communication might be a good place to start, because it's such a key part of this journey. And in the words of David Attenborough, saving our planet is now a communication challenge. We know what to do, we just need the will. So, how can we create that will through comms? So, that's something we're going to try and explore today. And I thought what would be most useful as something to kind of share would be some of my learning from all the research and kind of conversations I've had so far as to where to start with creating a comms plan for this kind of big community climate change engagement program, and communicating the work of the wider climate team at the district council that I'm part of. So I'm hopefully, going to give you a couple of tools and resources to go away with, ones that might be new to you, ones that you might have heard of already. But I also would really like this to be collaborative and beneficial, for my own knowledge and for everyone else's. So if you also have resources or kind of ideas that you want to share, please do chip in or put them in the chat, and hopefully we can create a fantastic kind of bank of resources that everyone can benefit from. So I'm going to kick off by talking about kind of like the approach that we're using to to go down the comms route with, which is the co-benefits approach. So I'm sure you'll all be aware of this already, but the co-benefits approach looks at how lowering emissions also creates improved health and well-being, social equity, thriving economies with new jobs and green skills, and also community resilience. So really looking at climate action and engagement with climate action with residents and businesses and organisations through this lens, rather than the lens of using the kind of like stick and you should be doing this and kind of the guilting kind of speak, but actually looking at what are the benefits of going down this transition, because I think too often the kind of climate emergency, climate action is really a fear mongering kind of exercise that turns a lot of people off. So this is about using using hope instead of fear. And we know in terms of psychology that people respond a lot better to hope rather than fear. It's been proven that there's part of our brain that shuts down when we go into flight or and fight response. So actually we're not able to make these kind of rational decisions when we're in this kind of fear mindset. So we want to access the full kind of creativity and engaged zone of everyone's kind of mindsets. So yeah, there's a saying of don't ask, inspire. So don't campaigns that have been really successful so far and are well documented are ones that haven't asked people to do things, because people, if they perceive that there's going to be a lot of effort involved in that behavior change, then they won't do it. And most of that effort is actually in the perception of it. So instead of asking people to change their behaviors, inspire them to change their behaviors through giving fantastic examples of what's already taking place in the community, and what fantastic innovative projects are happening already. And that actually gets people thinking, oh, I could do that, and I've got this skill set. Yeah, rather than using the stick and making people feel guilty and excluded from these conversations, which we know disempowers people and turns them off. So using this kind of co-benefits approach is a much more kind of engaging way to talk about climate action, and is also very important, I think, at the minute, especially with lots of communities really struggling with the cost of living crises, and lots of other issues. So it's actually about talking to our residents and community groups and seeing what are the issues that they're facing in their daily lives, and using climate action as a vehicle to create positive change in those areas. So, for example, reducing your carbon footprint at home will save you money, as well as being a fantastic step towards reducing our overall local authorities' carbon footprint. So it's trying to find what resonates with different people. Um, and that brings me on to a useful piece of research that's been done, which is all around communicating with different groups of people, because communication can't just be the same for everyone across all groups, because we know that people respond differently. So there will be some people that respond to urgency and climate emergency talk and are engaged by that and driven to activism and change. But as I said, there's a lot of people that will be really turned off to that language. So it's important to know which groups you're talking to and how they might respond. So there's been a great piece of work done by Britain Talks Climate, and the overall organisation is called Outreach. So it's Britain Talks Climate, and they have surveyed over 10,000 people to segment the British public into 7 different categories. So the categories that they have come up with, that encompass the whole of a representative sample of the British public, are progressive activists, backbone conservatives, civic pragmatists, established liberals, disengaged battlers, disengaged traditionalists, and loyal nationals. And the important point is that all of these segments respond differently to different messaging. Um, so it wasn't just climate change that these 10,000 people were surveyed on, it was COVID as well. But there was also a really interesting kind of overarching thing that came out of this piece of research, was that it revealed that the public is fractured but not deeply polarized, and climate change is emerging as an issue that has the potential to unite us. Now, I think that's a really important thing to remember, because it's very easy to think right now in today's kind of world that everyone is polarized and it's this us versus them rhetoric in everything, all across different swathes of society and industry, and especially with the recent elections, just seeing how polarized the world has become, especially in politics. So it's really encouraging, I think, for me to see that actually, although there are these kind of segmentations, that climate change has emerged as one of the key issues that can unite us. And there's more that brought these groups, more that united these groups than there was that separated them. Um, so it's a really interesting study that is accessible everywhere, so to everyone. So you can find it online and you can download the full report. And the report goes into how you can then communicate with each of those segments and provides you with the questionnaire that you can then use to survey local people in your authority to then find out what percentage of those seven segments you have in your local authority. So it's a really interesting piece of research to engage different groups. And um, so I think that's something that is really key to take away. And when I was doing my research and I was asking lots of different local authorities, what kind of resources do you use? Do you have any things that underpin your approach to communication? This came back time and time again as one of those key pieces of research. So that's a really interesting thing to look at. Then the next kind of piece of resource that I'd like to share is the Ashton Sustainable Towns and Cities tools for councils. So that specifically looks at co-benefits, and it's a climate action co-benefits toolkit. Now I can share all of these with you afterwards, so I can provide all the links and everything in the chat afterwards. But the Ashton Sustainable Towns and Cities Tools for Councils provides a full kind of co-benefits toolkit that shows the benefits of different um, actions that you can take. And there's a list of 31 climate actions that are all quantified in terms of their likely carbon savings, their approximate cost, and their co-benefits in terms of improved health and well-being, social equality, thriving economies, and community resilience. So they also provide some case studies of best examples and practice around the UK in terms of communication of those actions. So that's something that I've also been looking at that, that fits in nicely with the co-benefits approach to communication and how we talk about the projects that we're going to be doing. So in another kind of thought area that's kind of informed my work so far on how we're going to communicate all of the range of different projects that are going to be making up this climate change engagement program is around the kind of disconnect between people and nature and how that feeds into people's attitudes towards climate action. So climate is often seen as very political. And again, I think that links back to there being associated asks of different groups of people and asking people to give up things um, and change their behaviours. So and also has effects then on, you know, different political decisions. So I think that's another reason that talking about climate often kind of switches people off, whereas nature is very apolitical, neutral, and seen as, you know, an old friend that we've lost touch with, rather than this kind of, you know, angsty political thing that climate has become. So there's some really great speakers on this. One called Rob Hopkins, who started the Transition Network, and he's got a fantastic podcast, which is called From What If to What Next. And there was a episode that I listened to, which is called What If We Deeply Listen to the Natural World? And that's all
What are
around
you doing?
a two-way kind of communication with people and nature, and talks about how we have lost so much nature connection, and points to that as a reason towards why people are struggling to get involved with climate action. So um, something that we're thinking about in the approach to um, the program that I'm going to be running is, how do we get people more connected with nature? And here in the Forest of Dean, we're surrounded by gorgeous ancient woodland. But the UK overall, a statistic from The Guardian is that out of 14 European countries, the UK is the most disconnected from nature. And I think this is, yeah, is the heart of a real issue of around getting people more involved with climate action and on board with measures, because there's such a disconnect between us and the natural world. And as soon as we don't see ourselves as part of nature, I think that's when we start to work against it. So this is something we want to explore through the mediums of kind of art and through culture and music, and trying to get people to envision a future that is more positive. So one of Rob Hopkins' things he does is a visioning for 2030, and asks people to think about, what does the future look like? What does 2030 in the future look like, smell like, sound like? And trying to think about that in a way that we've done all these kind of fantastic decarbonisation initiatives, and what are the, again, the co-benefits that are created from that, in terms of thinking about air quality is fantastic, and there's less cars on the road, and children can play outside, and thinking about what's the ideal future, and actually creating a longing for a different future to one that currently feels like we're becoming locked into. And this is really interesting because it's a tool that marketers use in their communication techniques to make us buy more stuff and consume more stuff. So it's interesting to try and harness those tools and use them for something really positive, in terms of creating a culture of climate action. So why is marketing so effective? So you think of the likes of your John Lewis advert and things like that. I'm sure we'll see that their Christmas advert very soon if it's not out already. But those advertising marketing campaigns are so effective because they really tap into our deep-seated insecurities and desires. So for love, for companionship, for connection to others and to ourselves, and to finding meaning um, and identity. And they use those techniques to then drive longing and want and desire, to then push us to consume and to buy things. Um, but what if we use those exact same techniques to create a longing for a different future, for one that has all of those beautiful co-benefits and creates a future that is really exciting um, and nourishing, and creates better well-being for everyone involved. So that's something I think that we can push towards, is creating a longing for a future that's different to one that is currently on the trajectory for, and using that co-benefits approach to do that, and to at the same time link up nature connection and get people more engaged, and see us as part of that, as part of that whole journey. We are nature, we are part of the environment, and that's such a key part of climate change, and everything will be affected by the climate changing. So I think that's something I'm really keen to do, because it makes it so much easier to involve young people and different community groups when you're using this kind of lighter touch and more artistic kind of thinking to access thinking about what a future could look like, beyond just kind of the fear mongering, to try and change people's behaviors. um, so we also know that, as part of communication, really great, accurate information is important, and to be able to present that in a way that's really easy to understand and inclusive for everyone. So I wanted to share a couple of resources as well that are I found really useful for for basically showing what the situation is, that can be quite specific to a local authority. So recently there is a new tool that's come out from the Met Office, called, it's the abbreviation is LACS, so it's the Local Authority Climate Service, and I can share my screen and show you what that looks like. And I really recommend having a play around with it, to get a really good understanding as to what climate change will look like in your authority. Um, so if I just share my screen, can everyone see that? Oh.
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so this is the Local Authority Climate Explorer. So you can select your local authority here. So I've put in, Forest of Dean, and it comes up with a really nice couple of graphs specific to your local authority. So you can toggle through them here. So change in winter medium temperature, summer precipitation rates, winter precipitation rates, that's sea level data, and annual average temperature. Then you can also click here to generate a report, and it produces a really nice report of a summary that's something that's really easy to understand for your average person, and you can pick out bits of this to use in your comms. So there's different graphs as well that you can use, and I think that's something that can really inform conversation, and be kind of used to draw upon when planning different comms, so internally as well as externally. So that's a fantastic tool. So that's from the Met Office. Again, anyone can access it. So if you just search for LACS, and it gives a clear and easy way to understand data and graphs on changes to local climate systems due to global warming. Then the next one I wanted to share was no. So there's one called Scatter, from Anthesis Group. So I've not got it up. And again, this is for local authorities. So it's a emissions reporting tool for local authorities. And this again produces some really nice graphs to articulate what's needed to move to net zero. So this is another tool that I think is a really good one for accuracy of reporting, which again I think is essential to underpin communication around climate change. And then in terms of getting people to on board with all of the different jargon that comes with climate change and climate action, this is something I've always found really useful, is the Eddie Jargon Buster. So it's called Eddie Explains is the website, and under resources there's this jargon buster with a real A to Z list of loads of different terms around sustainability and net zero and climate action. So something that I want to do as part of the comms piece is provide some training and events going through jargon busting and what do all these words mean, because language is so important, and often language can really exclude people from the conversations. So an example of this is like retrofit. So retrofit doesn't mean anything to anyone outside of the kind of sustainability space, and that's why lots of authorities have taken on schemes, naming their schemes so warm and well and comfortable homes, and really just talking about what that scheme actually entails is essentially yeah, making houses more energy efficient and bringing down the cost of bills for them, and in the meantime reducing wasted energy. So really trying to think about the language that we use and making that as easy and accessible as possible for people, but promoting things like this to really understand what these terms mean. And they also have some really good reports on Eddie Explains as well. Um, so, and then the other one I wanted to show you was, I mentioned earlier, was Ashton. So that was the toolkit for city regions and local authorities around co-benefits. So this is a fantastic website that goes through all of yeah, these benefits of climate action, and framing climate action in a way that moves through this co-benefits approach. Um, so they're my offerings to you as really great resources to help communicate the climate crisis in your local authorities. Um, so if you're happy for me to keep talking, I can talk about a couple more kind of approaches that we're going to be using. So I think something that's really important is through using trusted messengers and relationship building. So thinking about where information comes from. So often coming from a district council, people have certain preconceptions as to different agendas and things like that. So we're trying to identify trusted messengers in the communities and different community groups, and trying to promote messages to people through those messengers, um, and a famous quote is that change only happens as quickly as relationships. So really, it takes quite a long time to build this momentum and build trust to bring about this change. So that also makes it more relevant to people's lives. So if they hear a message through a organization that they really care about and it actually means something to them, um, and brings a totally different engagement kind of perspective than just a district council sharing a message about recycling. So trying to think about where communication comes from, and how to make it accessible to everyone as well. So using a mixture of approaches as well. So we know here in Forest of Dean, digital inclusivity is a big problem. So there's lots of people that have low internet access or just aren't online at all. So trying to think about how do you put messaging out there in a way that is accessible to everyone. So I've been in contact with our local radio station, Dean Radio, and they're really keen to help share messaging. So I'm going to try and have a regular slot there to talk about climate action that's taking place across the district. Again, not just focusing on what the district council are doing, but talking about local stories, local heroes that have done fantastic stuff, because again that is what engages and inspires people, rather than district council kind of telling people what they should be doing. So using different approaches. Newsletters work well in some areas, in some places that just wouldn't work, and also having some print versions, but also thinking about resources and the environment so not printing off all of them, but if you know that there's an area that is really low on digital inclusion, making that accessible using notice boards and things that are already there, as well as your social media platforms as well. And social media is a fantastic source of information. It's become one of the biggest sources of information for people now. So that there are some fantastic Instagram accounts that I follow and great things to promote through there. There's one account called Earthly Education, which is really, really popular with the younger generation, and it uses memes to talk about climate issues. And some are really funny, some are really sad, but it really engages you in a totally different way that just makes you think differently. So thinking about the narrative and how that's put across in lots of different ways is important. So that's my kind of summary of things. So yeah, co-benefits, interconnectedness with nature, using really great tools and fact-based evidence to back up that messaging, using the tools that marketers and use to drive consumption to engage people in a way that creates a longing for a different future, and using a mixture of lots of different approaches to try and engage people, whilst also thinking about the segments of the population and how not everyone is going to be engaged in the same way, and how that might change from different groups. And so utilizing some fantastic resources and research that's already out there, that is general to the UK, but also can be much more specific to our local authorities. So yeah, I think I'll finish it there, and I can share all of those links in the chat whilst we've still got time. But I hope that's been a kind of interesting view to see how my brain is going when I'm trying to approach this massive task of basically coming up with a comms plan around climate action. And I think there's a lot more to it than just creating a plan. It's actually understanding the demographics and understanding a lot about psychology and what makes people want to change their behaviors, and kind of using those things to inform how we communicate with residents. So hopefully you've taken something from that. I see a hand up. Belinda, would you like to ask a question?
Could I just jump in, Katie, before
Yeah.
it's going, if I may, just to say thank you so much for a brilliant presentation. That was really quite fascinating. I'm amazed at my prowess in inviting you to come in the first place. That was obviously a very bright move on my part. I think it would be wonderful for everybody if two things could happen. One, if you could stop sharing your screen, then we'd all
Oh, I'm so
well
sorry.
done. And the second thing is, I'm going to insist on you, please, putting together at least a 2-page presentation with all these facts on it, because it was well worth having. And I know it's good to have it in the chat, but I think it's even better to put it in a presentation if you could.
Mm.
So I apologize for jumping in on top of Belinda, but just wanted to say thank you so much. It was superb. Well done.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, hi. I was going to say the same thing. So I've just been doing a carbon literacy workshop with Ellen, who's also jumped on. And we were scheduled to do 9 till 1, but because we saw this banter session was coming up, and because we were mostly talking about how do you talk about climate change and what are the communication tools, we thought, shall we race through,
Oh.
not do our, not do the plan thing and come and join you. So yeah, a lot of what you were saying is kind of what we were talking about as well. Yeah, I'm definitely keen on the links, definitely keen on if you've got some more advice on Instagram accounts, because I'm a complete novice in that. We talked a lot today we had quite a small group, and it's run through Dorset Climate Action Network, and I suspect that we're very similar to Forest of Dean in terms of apart from the fact that we've got a lovely coastline,
Mm,
some of the issues you've raised about people who don't have any interest, or they're put off by talking
mm,
about climate change, or they don't have digital connectivity. So it's really interesting
mm,
to have your kind of awareness of all the different
mm,
ways we are trying to reach people. But yeah, we came up with, it was amazing because it was a small group. It was really good that we
mm,
could just say, right, what are you doing locally? What more would you like to do locally?
mhm.
And it's just so many people are doing some amazing things, like you were talking about connection with nature. Because
Yeah.
in Lyme, I've tried to do. I was Lyme Regis Town Councillor,
Mm,
Dorset councillor, no longer on the town council, but I've tried to do lots of community engagement and lots of visioning for
mhm.
2030. I did
Okay,
a
nice.
exercise with the primary school where I got
Yeah.
a group went in and made a little video with the youngest class, which at
Oh,
the time we worked out that they were going to be turning teenagers in 20,
mm,
and it also coincided
wow.
with that they were the post-lockdown kids, so
Right.
they'd been stuck at home and they didn't have any social skills. So
Yeah.
this exercise that they went in once a week for an afternoon and sort of taught them how to work together to create a cartoon about how they would like Lyme Regis to look when they turn 13.
Oh,
So we've got this really
yeah.
sweet little video, which I don't quite know what to do with, apart from the fact that it's been done and the school really,
Yeah.
really got a lot out of it.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Talking a lot
Well,
today about the sort of things that have captured the imagination in Lyme Regis. So whereas
mm,
my attempts at getting people together to kind of create a vision didn't really work,
mm,
what has worked is that the river monitoring, because
mhm.
everyone cares about sewage in the river.
Yeah, it's
Everybody,
exactly the same here.
the
Yeah,
guy the guy at Swanage was saying that
yeah,
that was really interesting for them because they're similar to us in that they're tourist
yeah,
towns. So we have a load of visitors coming in, and loads of
yeah.
the residents see the attention going into the visitors. But that they also found that a kind of fairly innocuous, not terribly attractive stream in the middle of town, that the residents felt really connected to it in a way
Yeah,
that they didn't feel connected to the seafront. So
yeah.
found that having a river group,
Mhm.
and that's certainly happened with our neighbouring village in Charmouth.
Absolutely,
Um,
it's the same
and it
thing here.
just
The Save the Y campaign brought together so many different groups of people,
exactly,
the anglers and everyone that people that previously haven't been engaged in different things and totally, yeah, new to like faces. And it takes something like that that really does bring everyone together. So
yeah, it
yeah,
completely
it's
depoliticizes it completely, doesn't it?
exactly.
It's all about caring for your community.
Yeah,
And just quickly, one more thing I was going to
yeah,
say.
yeah, please.
Graham and I did a carbon literacy, a very brief presentation at the Dorset COP
Yeah.
recently, a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, amazing.
And a lady afterwards came
Yeah.
up to me to say she wasn't in it, but she'd been doing the talk just before me, and she's an architecture lecturer at Portsmouth, I think it was. But she came
Mm,
to find me to say, because I came to your workshop this time last year at the first Dorset
mm.
COP, I'd talked about Rob Hopkins' book, What From What Is to What If. And
Oh,
I'd also showed them Sadiq Khan's book about his journey to
yeah.
understand how, um, how to, the need to stop air pollution killing Londoners. He got
Mhm.
asthma and then he sort of learned more about it. So I held those two books up as examples of sort of practical action and ways that you can inspire people.
Yeah,
And
perfect.
anyway, she said, because you mentioned that, she now
Yeah.
teaches that whole approach of visioning and
Oh,
creativity and imagining
yeah.
a better future to her on her architecture course. Oh my
Amazing.
goodness, I do these little talks and you
Wow.
never quite know the impact you're going to have. And then to get
Yeah.
that feedback was lovely. Anyway, thank you very
That's
much. Just,
fantastic.
I
Well, it
hadn't
just shows that it's an
heard of
approach that works so well and gets often people say to me when I talk to locals and stuff that they just don't know where to start. They don't know how to
yeah,
engage at all. And I think having one of those visioning sessions, like anyone can take part in, and to think, well, what do you want the future to look like, and then how can we get there? And everyone's got such a unique skill set, and everyone's got connections, and that's what it's all about. And everyone's got so much power, especially in your consumption habits, and paying with your wallet is so huge and really can really change the world. So I think
And
it's
younger people are not inhibited by all the sort of barriers that we as
mm,
counsellors think, oh well, no one's going to listen, or oh the
mm,
council won't let us do that. But young people are completely uninhibited in that.
yeah.
So
Yeah, they don't know the
they just
boundaries.
come up with brilliant ideas, which may be totally bonkers, but there might be a
Yeah,
seed of it which makes a lot of sense.
yeah, definitely. Thank you, Belinda. I saw some other hands
John.
up.
Yes, John Payne is first, Katie, and then Mervyn.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
You're muted, John.
Yep. Hi. Yep. Thanks for the talk, and I'm really looking forward to all those resources.
No problem.
Can I just say there is another way which is much more effective? I spent 10 years with the transition movement,
Yeah.
and then I moved on to Extinction Rebellion in 2000 and 2019.
Uh-huh.
And I believe that you have to have people engaged in local issues, particularly, say, for example, the why, which has been absolutely brilliant and brought everybody together, as the last speaker talked about. But I think also about we have a problem with the rockfall on the main road into Wales, which has been partially closed since February. And I think it's looking at the way that companies, local authorities look at the risks of climate instability and uncertainty, and how we communicate that to people, because people here that they won't be able to go to work. When they close the main road, which is happening quite soon, and putting in a contraflow system, the lorries won't be able to get into South Wales. And these are issues that people really do engage in, because they relate
Suddenly
to
affects their whole life.
their whole life. So I'm looking at a way of how do we communicate with the general public about the risks to their present day way of life, and how do we get councils to not just sit on their hands but actually do something.
Yeah, and the risks that you talk about, that's exactly what I'm working with the local parish and town councils on, is coming up with those risk summaries. So what are the specific risks in the local areas? And the main ones, like for the towns here, are flooding and extreme weather events. And already they're seeing big impacts of flooding, and which then affects the local economy and especially the farming community and all sorts. So, yeah, looking into the risk profile of the locality is really important, because you can then see exactly what the problems are going to be. Like, I think even this summer there was problems with the roads like starting to melt and things like that. So it's things that even in the next couple of years we're going to have to adapt to, and these risks are becoming years ahead of what we're expecting, are becoming a problem for here and now. So yeah, I think as soon as there is that
Thank you very
disruption.
much. And I'm looking at a way, which that book by Mervyn King, about the radical uncertainty of life. That is what I really recommend people look at. But thanks, yeah.
Thank you, John.
And on to Mervyn, please.
Hi, Katie. Thank you very much for your talk. I found it very interesting, and feel quite a synergy with what you're trying to do through what we're doing here in North Kesteven in central Lincolnshire.
Okay.
Before I rattle on about that, I would just like to ask you a couple of questions. The first one is, how do you engage with your elected members? That's the first question. And how are you engaging with your parish and town councils?
So our elected members, I think we're very lucky that they are incredibly passionate. We've got a very ambitious council, and they are very, very much on board, and driving seat of a lot of the action. And so there's quite a few of them that we've been engaging with at local events and just in the district council, having chats with, and they seem to be involved in all of these other different community groups and initiatives. So it's happened quite naturally at the minute, but I'm still 2 months in. So in terms of like the official kind of communication ways, I'm probably not I'm not clued up on that just yet. But the bit that I am leading on, more specifically, is the town and parish councils. So I can talk about that in kind of more certainty, because we've just had a session where we invited all the town and parish councillors to a meeting to talk about how we can better engage with them. And so we sat down. It was our evening meeting 2 weeks ago now, and we asked everyone what are the issues that you're currently kind of facing with engagement, and how can we better work together. So we came up with lots of ideas for that, and one of the things we'll take forwards is regular meetings, and then there's also meetings set up with the clerks as well, specifically, and they're having their own kind of regular meetings across the district as well. And then I've been in the process of meeting with as many parish councillors as I can around their climate action plan. So at that meeting we had, I said, I want to know anything that anyone is doing around climate action. Have you got a climate action plan in place already? Have you got a biodiversity plan in place? Do you have an adaptation plan? Do you have risk summaries? And do you have any measures that are currently happening? So then got chatting to lots of people, got email addresses and set up meetings. And so I've had a couple so far with some really engaged counsellors, and I'm going to be working with two of them at least who've got some Section 106 money that needs to be spent on air quality improvement measures. So that's something really kind of concrete, excuse the irony, that can come out of this is yes, coming up with projects to kind of spend that money. So that's just one way that I'm working with two of the parishes so far. But yeah, hopefully we're also going to be supporting them with a follow-on workshop. So we provided support before I came into post to create their adaptation plans, and now in January want to give some extra support to do a workshop as to like what now, how do we keep that moving forwards, and then offering kind of constant support from officers to kind of inspire and give support wherever it's needed.
Right. After this event is finished, I would like to keep in contact with you. I'll explain what we're doing here in North Kesteven. It's a slightly different approach. Back in the summer, we sent a survey out to all of our parish councils asking those very questions. Have you got a climate action and biodiversity action plan?
Yeah.
And the response was very scattered, shall we say, from the parish council that came back. But of those that responded to that, we've then taken a slightly different approach. My role on the district council, it's a very grandiose title that they've given me. It's Climate Change Member Champion. I've never been a champion in my life before. And basically, what I'm doing, I go out to parish councils and I do a presentation on climate action. And the way that I approach it is probably slightly different to the way that you are going about it at the moment. I do a brief introduction about the Earth and demonstrate it as a closed loop system. I take it from a planetary boundaries aspect initially.
Yes, yeah.
Because climate change is just one aspect of what's going on, to explain that. Then just a short section on carbon footprint and carbon literacy. And to illustrate carbon literacy, I have a slide that comes up with a packet of digestive biscuits. And I asked the people at the meeting, the councillors, what has the most impact on our environment for this packet of production, this packet of biscuits? And the first one that comes is the plastic wrapper or transport or whatever. And then I mention palm oil, because I'm very, very passionate about the environment, which tends to get missed. And then the presentation goes on. This is an initial presentation, and this is based on a session we had on the Banter sessions back in, I think, January.
Okay.
Community projects and involvement.
Yeah.
And the way that I'm approaching it is take the easy wins first. I'm looking to save people money, make their lives better, their environment better, improve health and well-being. I've teamed up with a colleague of mine on the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust so that we can go into rewilding projects and stuff like that.
Amazing.
So the way that I'm doing it is slightly different. And I have one parish council where the chairman is a total climate denier.
Really?
But she's very interested in starting up a refill project.
Okay, yeah.
Because there are community benefits. So we're tackling it a slightly different way. As I say, I would like to keep in contact with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Share ideas and see how you do it and how it works here.
Absolutely. I mean, as I say, it's really early days for me. I'm 2 months into the role, so I've only just kind of got my head around the role and all the different stakeholders and everything. So this is very much in a state of kind of flux. This is just I've tried to shed my thoughts and resources that I thought would be beneficial to other people as it is now. But I'm constantly learning, constantly trying to just soak up as a sponge as much knowledge as possible. So I'd be more than happy to
that's absolutely great, and I can share information here because I work very closely with our climate manager and our climate team.
Fabulous.
And I've also presented to elected members because I'm pushing elected members to go out and spread the word to the councils to get me in front of their parish councils and doing it that way. So if we can share emails or whatever.
Definitely, I'll put my email in the chat as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your talk. And I'm looking forward to going through your resources.
Thank you, Mervyn. Appreciate it.
Mike, the floor is all yours again.
Hi. Where have you gone, Kate? Oh, there you are. Sorry. We've taken a slightly different approach in Hay, in that the mention of climate is sort of intrinsic. It's not extrinsic. And we started off by a sort of banner headline, Hay Community Resilience Initiative, we need you. And it's happening on it. And then food, energy, mental health, resilience for Hay. And that brought 39 people in, which kicked the thing off. And then we ran a community assembly. And the banner there was, let's grow our own food, Hay Food Resilience, self-sufficiency for Hay, come and design our future. And the one that we're doing in January is let's generate our own energy, Hay Energy Resilience, self-sufficiency, Hay, come and design our future. And in our assemblies, we actually ban yes buts. No one is allowed to say yes but about anything. What we do is we teach them active listening, where you actually listen to somebody and you don't interrupt them, and you don't while you're listening to them of what your response is going to be. You just hear them so that they feel valued and heard, and everybody in a facilitated assembly gets the same opportunity to speak. And then the note takers take down the opinions, which are stuck on one side of the sheet, and the actions, which are stuck on the other side of the sheet, tiny little post-it notes. And thereby we collect all of the information that we need in order to find out how much energy there is in the community for that particular aspect of what we're doing. And the third pillar we're launching in May, it's a mental well-being pillar. And the question is always, how can we support Hay on Y2, and then whatever it is that we're dealing with. Self-sufficient. And And that way you only track people who want to do it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I'm not in the business of trying to convert anybody because it's just too much hard work. I'd much rather find the people that want to do it and then work with them. And on the fourth one, we've got over. We now know that we've got over 10% of our community behind us, and
Brilliant.
109 people turned up for the first assembly. So, and we could have
Amazing. How many turned up? Sorry.
109.
109. That's fabulous. Wow.
Simply by selling it in a different way was something around which they understood what it meant. And of course, you have to adapt that for your own community because not all communities are the same as ours. But
Yeah.
the approach that we took, and it worked. And now we've got the Welsh Government behind us and the Future Generations Commissioner and his office behind us. And they hopefully I've got money to be able to hire somebody for 3 days a week and and to pay next to assemblies. And I think they want me to go round to communities in Wales and explain to them what we did and how we did it and so on and so forth. And
that's fantastic.
So it's you know, I think we've all come up with ideas based upon where we are, because anything we can do is do what we can where we are with what we've got.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. That sounds really amazing.
I'd really like to keep in touch. So I'm
absolutely. I've just posted my email along with some of the links, and then I'll try and put them together in a bit more of a presentation style with some of the notes that I made to prepare for this. So thank you so much for all that collaboration at the end there. I'm going to have to jump off because I've got to go straight into another meeting, but I've really enjoyed coming to my first Banter event and also it being the first presenting. So thank you so much for listening to me ramble. I hope there's been some of that's been useful, and really looking forward to staying in touch. I feel like together we can all make such a bigger impact when we work together. So thank you so much. I'm gonna have to drop off now, but really appreciate having the floor today. So thanks a lot. I hope to see you again soon.
You're going to become a regular feature. Bad luck. Take care.
Fabulous. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. Bye.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
So for everyone else, let me just announce that next week we have what I think should be also a very fascinating conversation that's going to be of interest to many, many people, which is a discussion of biodiversity net gain from DEFRA. So hopefully they're going to define what they mean, how you measure it, how you measure the change, and what on earth we can do to meet our compliance obligations. So I commend that to everybody, please. And if there is anyone who wants to raise any more questions or discussions, now is your fleeting moment.
I was just going to say, we'll keep in touch with Katie as well, but also with Mike and Mervyn, because we have a draft page on our emerging Great Collaboration website, in other words, in work in development about communication. And I think we do need to gather as much ideas and approaches and support for people who are having to address this, because communication is the big thing at the moment. And I will get back to Katie, as I also live in the Forest of Dean, and catch up with her about how many of the 40 parish councils actually turned up at that meeting. But I'll talk that about with her later. Okay.
I was hugely impressed with the Forest of Dean that worked out that they needed somebody to do the communication and then hired her, because I think she's going to be a marvelous.
That was fueled by the success in raising £250,000 from a charity. Which sadly is not repeatable because the charity question are not open to further bids.
Stuart, you had a hand raised, please.
Yeah, sorry, I apologise for being late, and I look forward to going through the recording. It sounded like a very useful session. I'd just like to tell Jules that the posters and flyers have arrived, and they are being distributed.
Great.
Yeah, thanks.
Great dumbo to the fore.
And if I could butt in, you will send us all of these details, Graham, won't you, so that we can get in touch with Katie?
Yeah, you'd be amazed, Mike. I'm already halfway through my email to her saying, I suggest you create a presentation with the following items included. And
well,
I've gone through a long list, but yes, thank you. She will follow up. Yeah, no, she will follow up.
Well, thank you very much.
Right. Jennifer, you got your hand up?
Yes, I was just going to put in a quick plug for the Voices of the River webinar series. On the 19th of November, we have award-winning author, presenter, and campaigner Mary Caldwell, and she's going to be speaking about hope in a time of crisis, looking at biodiversity loss in relation to education and action. So,
yes, please do. If you slip the link to that in the chat, that would be really useful, Jennifer, please.
Yeah, so I'll basically, I think you need to go on to our social media, which is at ECP_evenload. I put that in there. And because every podcast, or sorry, every webinar we do has a different link. So I don't think I can't share an actual photo of the social media drop, unfortunately. But
no, if you put the link in there, then we'll all pick it up from there. But it sounds like a great idea. Are you making more movies about the state of the even load? Because I really enjoyed the first one.
We haven't made any more movies, but the webinar series is basically bringing in, top presenters. We've also got one following on from the kind of talking about contaminants. Stormwater Shepherds is going to be coming on in hopefully January of 2025 to talk about all of the road runoff contaminants. So yeah, there's loads. We're doing twice a month. We've got presentations coming on. So yeah,
well, I know I agreed to share with you and to support your Knowing Network, but now you're stealing all the topics I wanted to talk about.
Oh, we can share them. We're stronger together, Graham. Definitely stronger together.
Okay. Let me just say hello to any new faces or people I haven't sort of had a chance to exchange words with yet so far. So Helen down in Corfe Castle, nice to see you. And Jane, I don't know where Jane is. Tracy, I reckon.
Forest of Dean.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes, of course she is. Right. And it's clearly lunchtime. So time for me to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I do hope that you enjoyed it. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. Take care.
Cheers, Graham.
Bye, Graham. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.